The town of Plainville. Established in 1721 at the geographical center of Connecticut.
Okay, we'll begin. Welcome everybody to our town council meeting. Tonight is Monday, December 18th, 7 p.m. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Councilman Nazo will lead us in that. Would you all stand?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Before we begin our regular meeting, I would like to again thank you for coming tonight. Wish everybody here a Merry Christmas, season's greetings, and I hope you have an outstanding New Year. So best wishes to you and your family, and once again, thank you for being here tonight. We have a few things we're going to take care of first. Are we going to move that up?
Yes. Motion to move items 1 and 2 under Section 5, appointments and resignations, to just prior to the fire poster contest winners.
Second. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Okay. I'm going to come over here to the podium because we have an exceptional presentation tonight. I know you're all going to enjoy this, and I am honored to be able to do this. So, excuse me for a moment while I come over here, and I'm going to ask Erica Donovan to join me. Hi, Erica. How are you? Right over here. We're going to get you on TV. We have a proclamation from the town council for Erica Donovan. And for those of you who maybe have not been having your eyes open the past week or so, Erica is our local hero and celebrity. She has done amazing things with her generosity and her thoughtfulness. And I'm going to read the proclamation, and you'll certainly get a full feel for what Erica has done. She has a heart of gold, and she's our treasure. So thank you for doing what you did. That's just remarkable. Thank you. All right. Whereas 18 years ago, Erica Donovan moved to Plainville, Connecticut, and has called it her home ever since. And whereas over the years, Erica has dedicated much of her time and energy to the Plainville community and local nonprofit organizations. And whereas, in addition to raising her family, Erica's duties outside the home include being the Executive Director of PARC, P-A-R-C, a part-time office assistant for the Plainville Fire Department, as well as a consultant for 31 Gifts. And whereas it was through the 31 Company Disney incentive earlier this year that Erica earned the top prize, a trip to Disney. And whereas, after discussion and buy-in from her family, instead of taking a family trip to the theme park, Erica chose to receive a $3,000 Disney gift card and used it to purchase toys at the West Farms Mall Disney store and donate everything to the Marine Toys for Tots program, which distributes toys to children whose parents cannot afford them. This gets better. And whereas Erica's story of her pay-it-forward attitude and spirit of giving caused an unexpected ripple effect, Disney matched the $3,000 donation and asked Erica to go on another shopping spree. The West Farm Mall employee surprised her with another $3,000 donation to buy gifts across the mall for children. Shoppers at the mall, inspired by what they were seeing, donated gifts and money. And Legos joined in with a $3,000 toy donation to Toys for Tots. Look at what you started. of giving. You have done a remarkable thing. Now therefore be it resolved, we the members of the Plainville Town Council proudly acknowledge your generosity and offer our best wishes to you and your family for a happy, healthy holiday season. It's signed by the Plainville Town Council, myself, Scott Saunders, Vice Chairman, Ty Cox, Jesse Nazo, Rosemary Moranti, Deborah Tompkins, and Christopher Wazorko. She's our hero. For you to keep.
Thank you so
And would you like to say anything? Because there's lots of people here that admire what you've done.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And thank you, Council, for having me and for taking the time to recognize what was really a small gesture. I just wanted to go spend money and have some fun. So I really appreciate your taking the time to recognize me and to have me here and to do this. It really means a lot to me. Plainville is my home. I love this town. And the biggest benefit to this whole experience has truly been how much happiness and joy has been spread throughout this season from all of that. And I'm honored just to be part of it. So thank you so very much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
So this is going to be a second career. You're going to be a toy consultant after buying $12,000 worth of toys. So I'm going to have to ask you about a 4-year-old after that. This is from the General Assembly, introduced by Senator Martin and myself. Be it hereby known to all that the Connecticut General Assembly offers the sincerest congratulations to Erica Donovan. Your generosity of giving during this holiday season with your donation to Toys for Tots, your random act of kindness was a starting point that lifted others to do the same. Flourished by your kindness, compassion, and your brightly bursting heart full of love that you have shared with so many in need this season, which created this amazing chain reaction of holiday cheer. You are the change we all need to see in the world. The entire membership extends its very best wishes on this memorable occasion, expresses hope for continued success. 18th day of December, signed by Senator Martin Looney, President Pro Tem, Joe Arasimis, the Speaker of the House, and Denise Merrill, Secretary of State.
Thank you so
God
very
bless.
much.
The frames are going to cost a whole bunch of money.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Pettit. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we going to do our fine inspectors after the contest winners or
Before.
Before, okay.
Hard to transition from that, Erica. But we must move on, so everybody will get on with their meeting. I make a motion to appoint police detectives David Posadas and Mark Rivard as fire investigators as recommended by the fire marshal.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And one other, a motion to appoint Zachary Bishop of 9 Mill Road as a regular firefighter to the Plainville Fire Department.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Okay.
And Madam Chair, I would note that the detectives are actually here in the room, so I don't know if the fire marshal wants to make any comment or no.
Just one quick comment.
Okay.
Very quick.
Okay, we are now going to turn it over to
Very quick.
our
Yeah,
Fire Marshal Sutherland.
I certainly appreciate your appointment as the two detectives tonight as investigators. That lets us have 3 investigators. They've been through a certification program with the Department of Public Safety, and they are a huge asset to guys like myself. And I know my peers in other towns would love to have what we have in this town. The joint cooperation, it works very well. Thank you for that.
All right. The next portion of our meeting is another annual event that the Town Council looks forward to. And thanks to our Fire Marshal Sutherland for coordinating through our schools a fire poster contest. We have the children who have won the contest this year, and we're going to be presenting some certificates. And we now get to see their artwork, which elevated them to this. So we're going to give it back to our fire marshal. Larry, you can carry on.
Thank you.
Yep.
34th annual poster contest for fire prevention posters is this year. In cooperation with Connecticut Fair Plan, State Fire Marshal's Office, and the State Board of Education, we're able to put this on. We get everything supplied to us by the Fair Plan, so it's at no cost to the town at all. Tonight we have the 3 schools, grades 4 and 5, as winners. We have 15 total winners and 2 grand prize winners, and we'll go down the list. From Wheeler School, 4th grade, Elania Lacasse. Alyssa Markowski. Fifth grade, Tyler McGraw. Daniela Ponce. Tofflon School, 4th grade, Delilah Cretella. Mia Palea. And Nicole Plord. Fifth grade, Tofflon, Kaylin Sayachuk. Ashley Roy. Haley Montana. Lindistry School, 4th grade, Paige Weimer. Kara Ahern. Fifth grade, Shaylin Kay. And we have 2 grand prize winners tonight, both from Lindistry School, 4th grade, will be Cheyenne Sorrell. And Paige Iwanicki. Now,
Why don't you guys spread out a little bit and show your pictures to the
we like to show everybody your posters, and then if you would turn around after you have a few photo ops and show the whole town council all your pictures.
How about us? Over to the side.
Thank you very much, Scott. Appreciate it. Very nice. Now, if you could, we'll take some pictures out in the back lobby here if you choose to. And if we could turn around and show the town council all your posters and artwork.
Wow.
Thank
Nice
you.
job, everybody. Nice job.
Congratulations to all of you. The 2 grand prize winners are going to Hartford County Judging, and then from that it may go to state judging. It's up to the poster contest committee to take care of that. So you may be hearing from me, 2 grand prize winners. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Okay, great. Thank you. Guess we're all set. Town Council, Town Manager, thank you so much for the time you've given us tonight. I know you have a large agenda ahead of you. Good deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you for the work that you do with the students, Larry. It's very, it's gratifying to see the budding artists that we have in our school system. But most importantly, tied to that is you've learned some very important lessons about safety, about being prepared in case there's a fire, about what you can do to avoid any of that happening in your home. So thank you for what you do, Larry, and thank you to the students and the teachers and everybody that participates in the program. You've made us all very proud. Have a nice holiday. You can stay for the rest of our meeting, by the way, but if you'd really like to go, we'll take a few minutes and you can go do something else. Thank you for coming tonight. Okay. Are we all set, everybody? Those that are remaining, ready for the next phase? All right, we will continue on. We do not have a public hearing tonight, so I ask for approval of the previous minutes of the previous meeting.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to approve the minutes of December 4th, 2017 regular meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or corrections to the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Announcements and reports. Does anybody have anything to report tonight?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just a couple of things on the boards and commissions to which I am the liaison. I attended Conservation Commission last Wednesday night. They had a presentation on fracking waste, something that they're just starting to look at as a commission. And also I want to report, too, that they really have been working to consolidate the river cleanups with the respective watershed associations, which I think is a very positive move. And on Thursday, I attended Committee on Aging, and as usual, there's a lot happening at our senior center or being organized out of our senior center. One of the programs that's really grown is the grandparents raising grandchildren. It's a real need, and really our center has been very proactive in meeting that need. They have a group that meets regularly. They also will be doing, once again this year, they will be sponsoring a statewide conference, grandparents raising grandchildren. And attended the library board on Tuesday night. It was my first meeting as
Boy, you've been
liaison.
busy.
I know, so it was a busy week. I had
You're never
all three groups last week. And I did get to spend a little time with the downtown stroll 2 weeks ago that was sponsored by the downtown merchants, and it was interesting talking to local businesses.
Yeah, good. Does anybody else have anything to add? I have a couple of items, short ones, but worth mentioning. I attended on December 8th, the tree lighting ceremony, which is sponsored by the Downtown Merchants Association. Councilman Cox was there as well. It went very well. It was a very nice night out, and we had a good group there, and the snow came day 2, but I'm hoping that added to the spirit of the holidays and people were able to get out and visit our local merchants. Certainly patronize those merchants because they depend on local folks to come in and support what they're doing. So it was a wonderful event, and we had a great attendance. So I want to thank the merchants. I want to thank our volunteer fire department. They are a very big part of this activity. They have Santa come in on the big fire apparatus. They serve cookies and hot cocoa. And of course, Santa is inside the firehouse to talk to the children. So it was a great event, and it takes a lot of people coordinating, and as usual, they've done it very well. So I thank them for that. All right, if there's no other appointments, any other announcements, we'll move on to appointments and resignations. We did the firefighters already, so number 3.
Rosemary.
Conservation.
Oh, number 4. Oh, 3, excuse me, yeah. Motion to accept with regret the resignation of Jeffrey Brusso from the Conservation Commission.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 4?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to appoint Jennifer Bardis Early, Planning and Zoning Commission Representative to the Capital Regional Council of Government Regional Planning Commission through December 31st, 2018.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 5.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to accept with regret the resignation of Gail Puglisi from Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? If we could send her a letter of thanks, she's been doing that job for a very, very long time for the town, and I wish her well, and if we could send her a letter of appreciation.
We'll do that.
Thank you. There are no other comments. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Are there any other appointments or reappointments tonight that were not on the agenda?
Madam Chair, just wanted to point out one item, if you don't mind.
Yep.
Jennifer Bardis Early, who you just reappointed to serve on the Regional Planning Agency at CROG. She's been on that agency for a little while, and she is actually the chair of that organization, so she's distinguished herself even among the 38 communities in the capital region as the chair of that committee. So I just wanted to point that out.
We're happy to have her there. Thank you for that mention. Okay, Board of Liaison, Board of Education, Mrs. Saunders.
Hi, good evening. Andrea Saunders, 55 Fawn Drive. Superintendent Brummett attended a workshop at the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents last week in which the new ECS funding formula was discussed by a guest speaker named Kathy Guay. Kathy's a consultant with expertise in state finances and policies. And as Mr. Lee already alluded to, based on what was discussed in current state statutes, Plainville's ECS money is projected to rise steadily over the next 10 years. Two, the Plainville administrative team met last week to discuss the significant loss of the current year's ECS funding and the anticipated request from the council to cut $220,000 from this year's budget. The board's going to continue that discussion at our January 4th Finance Subcommittee meeting. We received some great news from the high school PSAT scores. Mr. Medic, our Plainville High School principal, has let us know that we have two sets of the 2019 and the 2020 class has increased their average combined scores by 51 points, 27 points in English, writing, and reading, and 24 points in math. Sorry, that was the 2019. The 2020 saw an 83-point increase on their PSAT scores, increasing 40 points in English, writing, and reading, and 43 points in math. Mr. Medic will discuss all of these in more detail at the upcoming board meeting in January. And then lastly, I just wanted to go over, as Chairwoman Puglisi alluded to earlier, in January is when the board does practically their whole entire budget. So we have our regular board meeting January 8th at 7 p.m. at the Plainville High School cafeteria. January 11th is our joint Board of Ed and Town Council meeting. That's at 6:30 at the Plainville Public Library. January 22nd, which is a Monday. January 24th, which is a Wednesday. Those are going to be 7 p.m., our first budget work session meetings. And then then February 8th will be the next board meeting where we will discuss and finalize our budget for next year. And we will add, if we need, we only have 2 budget work sessions, they'll add another one if needed. And I please invite the town council to come and hear our discussions. That's it. If there's no questions, please have a happy holiday and a happy new year. Thanks.
Thank you. What happened to Merry Christmas?
Okay, report of the town attorney, Attorney Mastriani. Do you have anything for us tonight?
Good evening. I do not have a report for tonight.
Okay, thank you. All right, report of the town manager. Mr. Lee?
Thank you very much. I have a couple of items, first of which is the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail Gap Closure Discussion. It's a kind of a mouthful there, sorry. On October 18th, a public information session on the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail proposal was held at the Plainville High School. Over 300 notices were sent to property owners that could be directly impacted by the trail. Approximately 175 to 200 persons attended the session, and many gave feedback on proposed Alignment C. Tim Malone from CROG and Mark Jewell and Teresa Carr from VHB are here this evening to give a summary of the comments received, responses to those comments, and adjustments to the alignment that are being recommended. They will also speak to the next steps in the process for the planning study. Bruce Donnell from the East Coast Greenway is here this evening to address any questions that the Town Council may have about trail impacts in other Connecticut communities. And Chief Matt Catania is also here this evening to discuss his experience with the trail while he was served in the Simsbury Police Department and his recent discussion with the Hampden Police Chief regarding their experience with the trail as well. So with your permission, I'd like to ask Tim, Mark, and Teresa to step forward and give their presentation, and after that, either Bruce or and the chief to step forward briefly as well. So we're going to give some time to this particular issue. That was the plan for this evening.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't know who's going to lead the discussion from. Okay. You can either use that one or. Oh. Either one. You can hold it or you can now at the podium.
What? Yeah, I guess we can control it from here, right? So.
Do you need a?
You can move those.
I don't. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much for having us. I'm Tim Malone. I'm with the Capital Region Council of Governments, which was mentioned earlier, we're a regional agency that serves 38 towns in the central Connecticut area. We do a variety of services, including regional purchasing, regional land use referrals, transportation planning, and public safety. We took up this study in 2015 as part of our goal to close gaps in regional trails of regional and statewide significance. So this is part of the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail, which once completed will be an 84-mile long trail from New Haven to Northampton, Massachusetts. It'll be part of the much larger East Coast Greenway, which I think will be around 3,000 miles from Key West, Florida to Maine. And this is the last gap in the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail that is not either in construction, completed, or in design. So this is the only one that's just in the planning phase. So we started this study really in earnest in 2016 with the goal of completing this last gap, which had been looked at previously in a 2009 study that was done by the Central Connecticut Regional Planning Agency, which at the time they assumed that they could use a portion of the Pan Am rail line that is still active, but that turned out to not be the case. So we took up the study again to look at it from sort of a fresh perspective. And then sort of a secondary goal of this study is to make a connection from Plainville over to the CT Fast Track station in downtown New Britain, which is where the CT Fast Track multi-use trail starts, and that extends to Newington Junction. So this will provide both a north-south connection and an east-west, which start to build up this regional network of trails for people to use. And with me today, I have Teresa Carr from the planning firm VHB, who's been our primary consultant on this project, among like 3 other consultants as well. We have a very large team of experts working on this project. She's going to give you a little brief overview of the project to date, and then we'll discuss some of the comments we've heard from the public.
Excellent. Thank you very much for giving us your time tonight. As Tim mentioned, our agenda for this evening is to give you a brief project history and overview, very brief, to talk a little bit about public engagement efforts. Mark Jewell, my colleague from VHB, is here to give you some details on our preliminary preferred alignment, Alignment C, and that is a north-south connection between Farmington and Southington on the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail. The CT Fast Track connection over to New Britain is not the focus of this evening's presentation. And then, excuse me, finally, to talk a little bit about our schedule moving forward from this evening. So Tim did a great job of discussing the vision statement for this project, and I am certain that you have seen this before, but we've highlighted in green some of the key words and phrases from this statement, and that is to connect the communities with a world-class multi-use trail, closing the gap in the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail, and prioritizing safety, comfort, and mobility for all users of the system, regardless of age or ability. So where we're at this evening, we are here with a preliminary preferred alignment to you this evening. This is the third in a 3-step planning process. We started with what we've been calling our long list of potential alternatives. We identified 14 potential alignments that would connect to Farmington at the north and Southington at the south, as well as 6 potential alignments that would connect Plainville with the CT Fast Track station in New Britain. During the spring and summer of 2017, we narrowed that to a short list of practical and feasible alignments, and that was 4 in Plainville and 2 connecting to the CT Fast Track station in New Britain. And we did that through a screening process. We then went through an alternatives evaluation process over the summer of 2017 that looked at a number of criteria that were important, stemming from our vision statement and relying on feedback that we had received from community meetings, as well as discussions with the project team and our steering committee, related to everything from safety, security, environmental impacts, cost, right-of-way impacts, and ability to permit an alignment. And that is where we narrowed and identified to the one preliminary preferred alignment that we're here to discuss with you this evening. We did, as Tim mentioned, hold a public meeting in October of 2017 where we presented on that preliminary preferred alignment and received robust community feedback. So to talk a little bit before we dive into the details on Alignment C, we want to talk about the public engagement efforts that we've had as part of this process. And I want, as part of this, to discuss the various groups that we have held discussions with through the process. We start with our project steering committee. This group serves in an advisory capacity both to the town as well as to Tim and Krog. The membership is diverse and includes representation from Capital Region Council of Governments, the towns of Plainville and Southington, as well as the city of New Britain, the Connecticut Department of Transportation, the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, the East Coast Greenway Alliance, the Plainville Greenway Alliance, the Farmington Valley Trails Council, and the Plainville Southington Health District. Now, this group has met a total of 7 times between spring of 2016 and the fall of 2017. We are anticipating that this group will meet at least one more time as part of this planning effort. Meetings are held around milestones, basically where we have technical deliverables to discuss in anticipation of public outreach efforts. We have had a handful of community-wide meetings and workshops stemming from the summer of 2016 through the fall of 2017. Our project kickoff workshop was in the summer of 2016. We had 3 charrette-style meetings where we came up with that long list of potential alignments in the fall of 2016. Our May 2017 public meeting was to present the results of our screening process and our recommended short list of practical and feasible alternatives. We had over 100 people attend that meeting. And then our most recent meeting, as I mentioned, was to present the preliminary preferred alignment, Alignment C, as well as the preliminary preferred alignment connecting to the CT Fast Track station. And we had close to 200 people participate in that meeting. We are anticipating holding a public meeting in the February of 2018, or certainly in the first quarter of 2018, to present on the draft plan once it's put together and is out for a public comment period. But we have held public outreach outside of these formal meetings, including project newsletters at key milestones, a regularly updated project website, which is gapclosurestudy.com, a number of site tours and bike rides in New Britain and Plainville. We've had a public comment agenda item in all of our steering committee meetings, presentations such as this evening to you, the town council, as well as regular town council updates from Manager Lee. Online surveys, which have really helped to inform the technical work of our study, booths at community outreach, newspaper articles, social media presence, and flyers and brochures posted throughout town. And I'll turn it back over to Tim to talk through some of the public comments that we've received.
I would also just mention that in addition to some of those others, we had a series of focus groups in the summer of 2016 with a number of community stakeholders and commissions and various organizations, as well as we had a tour for the town council of the alignment. So the majority of the comments we've received have been supportive of the project. We received comments on alternatives that were identified and looked at, including we've received a number of ideas for other alternatives, and a lot of the alternatives that we did look at came from public input. The evaluation criteria that we used to narrow alternatives, people weighed in on these, such as a very strong preference for off-road facilities and for prioritizing safety issues.
Excuse me, we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, I
Okay,
will.
I don't know whether
try to-
the microphones aren't working or what, but maybe it's me. I don't know. But can't hear. Can you hear anybody? Everybody
Hey,
here?
Joanne, we're going to try to improve that. If you could just be a little bit closer to the...
This is so important.
Okay.
People know what's
Thanks,
going on.
Joanne. Go ahead, Tim.
So there we go.
There you go.
That's better.
So I received comments on the alternatives that we were looking at, the evaluation criteria, including a strong preference for off-road facilities and prioritizing safety. We also received a lot of comments specifically about alignment C as the preferred alternative. There was a strong preference for that from that May meeting that we had when we presented our short list. This was the one that was talked about most, as well as various details of the alignments that people liked. And then on the next slide also some people did not like. And we've thrown a few quotes here from some of the comment forms that we received. I won't go through all of them, but they're just up there, and we like those. There were also a fair number of concerns that have been expressed, and we're actually very grateful that people have been as involved. I must say, I work for a regional agency that does 38 communities, and a lot of the projects we do actually cover all 38. This is a much smaller physical area that we're covering, but to get over 150, close to 200 people to come out to a public meeting on a project even of a regional scale would be amazing. But for something like this, it's when I told people at the office, they didn't actually believe me how many people we had. So I was grateful to see that many people, and also just the number of comments that we've received has also been great because, I'm not an expert on Plainville. I've seen a lot of it since starting this project, but being able to hear from the community the various issues and concerns and being able to check things with the community has been great because it really helps us to identify things going forward that need to be looked at and helps us to really understand, are there any deal breakers for this alignment? That's one of the main things that we're looking for in this process is to discover, is there anything that's just going to really sink it? Or is it stuff that we can work with and go through the design process to fix? So some of the concerns that we'd heard from members of the community, these are sort of the most common. We had comment forms at each of these meetings that people could fill out. People were also able to fill out a form on our websites. Sometimes people also just sent me emails or they were relayed through the town. We received dozens of comments. A lot of them were about sort of security, which generally, we're talking about security, we're talking about crime and vandalism, issues such as that. And we did a fair amount of research on this, looking into this issue. And from what we've uncovered, the research generally shows that trails, especially multi-use trails, experience lower or at least comparable crime rates to the areas around them. I could not find any research suggesting that crime rates were higher. So this is often a concern that's brought up by people. And it doesn't seem to be borne out by the research. There was a large study done by the Rails to Trails Conservancy of over 300 trails in 1997 that looked at nationwide in a variety of different contexts. And they found that not only were crime rates not higher, but actually in general they found there was a very small percentage of trails that had actually experienced any crime at all that they reported. One thing they did note is that oftentimes these are former rail corridors, oftentimes they're abandoned rail corridors, so they did have a higher level of graffiti and vandalism prior to the trail going in, and sometimes that did take a little while to work its way out as people got used to the fact that there was actually going to be people watching them as they spray painted. And generally it does decline after a little while, and more eyes in that area generally causes that to decline. Although in the immediate term, sometimes there is, now you actually have people being exposed to the graffiti and they see that as an issue, but generally the research does show that it is not a problem. But one of the keys to that is, one, having a lot of people use the facility. The more people who use it, the less likely you are to have any sort of issues with crime or vandalism, because more people are watching. and also to design it correctly so that people feel safe and don't feel like it's a place that they can get away with activities like that. Another concern that we've heard a lot about was property values, and that being adjacent to a trail or nearby a trail is going to hurt one's property values. Again, there's been a lot of research on this. It's hard to say with any sort of certainty. The research has found a variety of different results, but in general, it's found that those fears are not founded. Usually, actually, it associates with a small to medium increase in property values, sometimes on the order of up to a 10% increase. It depends on the context and obviously other factors in the real estate market. One research study found about a $9,000 premium for being 1,000 feet closer to the trail in one area. So this has generally been something that has been found to be either neutral or positive. So that was something that we've heard a lot, so we wanted to look into that. Privacy is another issue that a lot of people have brought up. Having the trail nearby your house, there's a concern that people will be looking into your house or into your property. And this, I couldn't find any research suggesting that it is is not actually a concern. It's really a perception, but it's something that's really taken care of in the design phase. There's a number of ways of mitigating that concern, either with natural barriers such as trees and bushes and shrubs, to fences. There are areas on the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail in Simsbury and Avon where there are fences that are installed for privacy. And that's certainly something that can be worked out during the design phase. I would note that there was an interesting example in Avon when they put the trail in there. There's an article I saw from 2001 where the neighbors had initially requested, actually demanded, fences be put in for privacy. I think they installed something like 2,000 feet of fence to respond to these concerns. Within 3 years, the neighbors had come back to the town council and requested that the fence be removed. Because they wanted to be able to access the trail more easily. Some of that was, because there's turnover in property ownership, and people were buying it because they wanted to be by the trail. But that is something that would definitely be considered during the design phase. Safety is another paramount concern of this project. It's actually been a driving force. Something that we've been hearing from day one is that people want a safe facility. As safe as possible. So as in our vision statement, we are prioritizing being as safe as possible. And we've been consulting with the DOT on this project. We've had a number of meetings with them to discuss this. They're on our committee, and we've actually had meetings at DOT as well to discuss this. As the project goes through design, anytime there's interaction with the streets, the engineers are going to be looking at this and trying to come up with the safest way to have the trail work with these streets and with the traffic. And one of the things that people don't realize as well is that when they are looking at those issues, if there's an existing safety concern on that road, they're not just going to leave it alone. They're going to be looking at that as well. So there's actually an opportunity here to start to address some existing concerns in the community. One that's always brought up is Broad and 177. And if we're putting the trail through there, that's something we're going to look at in the design phase. So another one was impacts to the environment. There was initially a lot of concern with the initial proposal for Alignment C had it going through Tomasso Nature Park, which there was some concern about that. It has now been shifted outside of Tomasso Nature Park. But this is, again, it's mostly a design issue. There are in the alignment that we are showing some wetlands impacts. You're going to be going through some wetland areas. Plainville has a lot of flood areas. It's got a lot of floodplain and a lot of environmental resources, and it's really difficult to avoid them. But we tried to as much as we possibly could. It was something that people let us know during our visioning process was important to them. And we've already actually had meetings, as Teresa mentioned, with Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. They actually came out and walked part of the alignment with us to look at some of the wetland areas to determine if they thought there was any serious concerns. They did not. We also had the Army Corps of Engineers come out to look at some of the flooding concerns, some of the areas that experience flooding in town that we might be going by. They also did not have any significant concerns. And the Environmental Protection Agency has also looked at the alignment. No one has officially weighed in yet. They won't do that until the design phase, but we recognized that there were concerns in the community, so we wanted to outreach to these groups to make those initial contacts and get it at least vetted initially to see if there are any red flags or any deal breakers coming up. Engineering concerns. This is a complicated project. Most of the trail has been constructed on abandoned rail lines, so you're just converting an existing transportation facility into a slightly different transportation facility. That's relatively easy to engineer. This one we're not doing that because we can't. So we do have some interesting elements such as a culvert under Route 72 that would take the trail under Route 72. We have a couple of bridges that would have to be put in. But one of the things that we also really wanted to look at here is one, to minimize the number of engineering challenges that we face. So we did take that into consideration, and some of the other alignments we looked at had even greater challenges. But to also make sure that we had alternatives. So as you'll see when Mark takes you through the alignment, there are ways to get around that. If for some reason the culvert under 72 doesn't work, we have an alternative. If for some reason one of the bridges doesn't work, we can just use the existing road and have just a separated facility for that small section. It's not ideal, but we could do it. So we really like that about this alignment, that there were ways around it if we needed to. Another one that's come up has been cultural resources and historic preservation. At one of the early meetings that we had, we asked people, what was important to them about Plainville, and one of the top answers was culture. And all throughout this process, we've heard from people saying they want more connection to the canal. They want to highlight the historic nature of the Farmington Canal, and in fact, it's in the name, Farmington Canal Heritage Trail. And so that's something that we've definitely prioritized. The team, we really view this as an enhancement to that resource, bringing people closer to the canal, and as much as we can, trying to enhance it through historic signage, or even if possible, looking at some of the bridges that go over it and some of the culverts, and seeing if there is a way to improve those so that it brings the canal back to its more historic state. And even the potential use of the towpath, which currently is not really in its historic state. It never had trees on it when they had mules running on the towpath, and a lot of the towpath has actually been destroyed over time. It's been lost forever, basically. Having this resource on it would actually preserve it for the future. And there have been multiple conversations between the town and also team members with the State Historic Preservation Office, just to give it an initial feel for, is this a big concern? Is this going to be a detriment? And so far we haven't heard any major concerns. So we're cautiously optimistic, but it is something that we're considering, and obviously we don't want to destroy a natural historic resource. Another concern is traffic and parking. One of the goals is to bring additional traffic close to downtown, so we actually see that particular aspect as a benefit. One aspect of this, though, is that most trail use is on the weekend, not on peak commute times. So the traffic that's generated by the trail generally doesn't conflict with the traffic that's generally generated by commuters in town. So we don't really see this as causing a lot of additional traffic or exacerbating concerns. And then finally, property impacts. That was something that we heard from the very first public meeting we had, was that wanted to minimize property impacts. And we have done that. That was one of the criteria that we looked at, was the number of properties that would be impacted. We tried to minimize that. As I'm sure you're aware, Plainville is a very built-out community. There's not a lot of space where there's not existing developments. So to the extent possible, we have done that. There are going to be some potential property impacts, and the town is evaluating those and going to be working with people on those. But to the extent possible, we tried to make them as convenient as possible, as minimal as we possibly could. So that has been a concern, and it's something that will be worked out during also the design phase, as the design gets fixed in space and finalized. So those are the big concerns that we heard. We also heard a lot of smaller things about specific areas. We And we were really glad about those as well, because we heard little things like about drainage problems on specific sections of the trail, which is great to know about because it could impact the trail, and also because through this process we might be able to fix an existing problem. I might actually be able to improve the situation. So, we're glad that we've been getting those comments, and we encourage more comments as well and more inputs, because while we can't address all of them during the planning phase, we can document them and bring them forth into any future design phase, so that the people who are designing it can take a look at them and see if there's ways to address them through the design of the trail. So we're looking forward to that. And then just going over to Mark next, right? Who will who will walk you through the alignment.
I'm gonna make my way over here. Good evening. My name is Mark Jewell with VHB, and I'm thrilled to be here in front of you again. Thank you for the time. I'm thrilled to be able to describe for you what we think is a practical and feasible alternative. And I'm going to dive into this. Feel free to stop me if I'm going too fast or you have questions. Most of you know we're talking about a 5.3 mile long proposed alignment from Northwest Drive in the north to Town Line Road in the south. I'm going to start here just for a second with some statistics, and then I'm going to get into them as we go down the alignment. But in this 5.3 mile alignment, the alignment only crosses 4 major roads. And I point that out because that's significant in that it's very few. If you've ridden any part of the trail in the south in Cheshire or up north, they have much more roadway crossings. So that's a phenomenal accomplishment here on this alignment. It is proposed to be a 10 to 12 foot wide paved surface. And if it does get past the planning phase that we're in into the design phase, the designers should be able to design this to up to, if not slightly more than 98% as an off-road facility. So that's a huge accomplishment as well. So beginning in the north, at Northwest Drive, people are probably familiar with the recent trail construction up there. There's a 24-space parking lot there at the corner of Northwest Drive and Johnson Avenue. That's where this alignment begins. And this would extend down Northwest Drive towards Perrin Road, utilizing the north side of Northwest Drive, where today, if you know the area, there's an existing bike trail facility on the north side of Northwest Drive. As we approach Perrin Road, there would be a new mid-block crossing, crosswalk at that location to get you across Northwest Drive. I want to point out, of the 4 major road crossings I mentioned, Northwest Drive traffic counts are the second highest at 9,000 ADT. That's average daily traffic. That's the traffic count on that road. The 85th percentile speeds, which I know is traffic engineering speak, but the westbound speeds are 43 miles an hour and the eastbound are 44 miles an hour as measured on last month in that roadway. So there'll be a mid-block crossing there, and then it goes down Perrin Road on the north side, directly behind the existing curb. As it approaches the intersection of Johnson Avenue, it turns left on Johnson Avenue, again staying right next to the road behind the existing curb. Then there will be a crosswalk to get you across Johnson Avenue into the Carling Technologies property. Can you see, Joanne? I will try to point this out, and I've got some blow-ups that are higher resolution for those who can't make this out, but Northwest Drive up here at the end of the runway at Robertson Airport, and then coming down to Perrin Road here, and then jumping into Carling Technologies property right there. So as we're going down Carling Technologies' western property line, the alignment heads south and it approaches, but stays just outside of Tomaso Nature Park. The trail does enter some wetlands here at the southern end of Carling's property. There's a short stretch between Carling's property and the transfer station property, the town-owned transfer station property, that may or may not need to be boardwalk. The designers will have to figure that out once they get survey and evaluate the wetlands. But once we're into the town-owned transfer station, the alignment, and I want to point out just before you can go ahead. This is a view, for those who know this view, this is a view from the southern end of Carling Technologies property looking across the wetland complex. Tomaso Nature Park would be on your right, just off the screen. That's looking directly at the landfill transfer station. And the next slide is a rendering of a concept that could exist if the designers went this way, where you see the trail just at the toe of the slope. This alignment is proposed to be right at the toe of the slope, out of the wetlands, out of the floodplain, and out of the floodway, as it circumnavigates that knoll, which is the transfer station. So as we continue south around the transfer station, we come out to Granger Lane, which folks know. There's the entrance to the transfer station, and then it extends from Granger Lane to Cody Avenue, for those from that neighborhood. Cody Avenue is a dead-end road. Here's the transfer station, and there's Cody Avenue. Sorry for the shaky hands here. See if I can get that a little more steady right there. And there's a large town-owned parcel there at the end of Cody Avenue, and the alignment extends through that parcel, which, for those who haven't been there, it's a pretty phenomenal parcel of land that the town owns that overlooks the wetland complex. This is a view of it in the summer. There's an existing trail in there, sort of user-created trail. But in the winter, we were out there Saturday in the snow with no leaves, and you have views all the way to Rattlesnake Mountain. It's a pretty phenomenal viewpoint from right there. But the next slide is a concept rendering of what the trail could look like through that town-owned parcel as we approach Route 72. Again, that's a before and an after concept there. As we approach Route 72, which is right here, you see the proposed alignment going underneath 72. That's a 190-foot proposed culvert under there, right at the exit 1 off-ramp and on-ramp area. I want to point out there are two alternatives. Should the geotechnical analysis and the designers determine that, for whatever reason, culvert is not feasible, we have alternatives. You see there in the dashed lines, which take you out to 177. And once you reach the intersection of 177 and the exit 1 off-ramp, that dash line would then, the proposed alignment would just head south on the east side of 177 until you get through the exit 1 on-ramp intersection and immediately turn left back into the state Route 72 DOT right-of-way and catch back up to where the other side of the culvert would have been. A second alternative here, if that's deemed to be not feasible for various reasons, you would go to that same intersection at 177 and the exit 1 off-ramp, and you would head to, you would go directly across.
No, I was going to do the...
Oh, okay. You'd go directly across 177 and stay on the north side of Route 72 in the DOT right-of-way all the way to Camp Street. For those who are familiar with Camp Street going under 72, then you would get under 72 via Camp Street and follow Camp Street back out to 177, where you would connect back to the proposed alignment at the cemetery. Backing up to the culvert crossing under 72, I believe we have a concept rendering of that. This is a view standing on Bruce Avenue, looking at Route 72 in the trees there. It's an elevated structure, and the next slide is a rendering of what that may look like once a culvert is installed there, coming out and then turning to the east. The alignment does not go on to Bruce Avenue. It stays on the DOT right-of-way, but follows Bruce Avenue around King Street and past Franklin until it reaches the rear of the cemetery property. Once around the cemetery property, we touch down on what is now a town-owned roadway. It's the town's road access to the pond back there that you see, the large pond. It's a closed road, it's gated. That's the proposed alignment for the trail getting back out to 177 at Camp Street. From there, we turn south, where we immediately cross the railroad tracks. For those who know the area, 177, there's a bridge over the railroad there at Camp Street. We would propose a 40-foot prefabricated pedestrian bridge immediately adjacent to the roadway bridge to span that railroad. And then we would stay right along the shoulder of 177, right behind the curb and utility poles, within the state DOT right-of-way, south, all the way to the crossing of the Pequabic River. Once across the Pequabic River, this is one of the locations where the alignment has been changed since our October 18th public informational meeting at the high school. Tim had mentioned that we had the federal regulatory agencies take a look at this, EPA, Army Corps, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, DEEP, and those agencies requested that we shift that alignment just slightly. That purple line is a little ways away from the actual river. In October 18th at the public informational meeting, we had that line closer to the river, thinking that that'd be a better experience for the user. But they took a look at it and, in fact, asked us to move it back a little bit due to some forested wetlands. And so we made that shift back just slightly. And then the alignment continues down the southern bank of the river there, reaching the town-owned fire department property, and then comes out to West Main Street, which is our second major roadway crossing. West Main Street is our largest traffic volume road that the trail alignment crosses. It's got just over 11,000 average daily traffic. It's got an eastbound 85th percentile speed of 39 miles an hour and a westbound of 37 miles an hour. Once across West Main Street, Route 372, the alignment goes down Pierce Street, and the design phase, if we get to the design phase, that's when they'll tackle the specific approach of how it goes down any of these streets that we have mentioned so far. But you head down Pierce Street and you come to the intersection of Broad and Pierce. Then the alignment heads down Broad Street through the intersection of Broad and 177 to just beyond Hemingway Street. We do have a rendering, I believe, the next slide. So this, I just want to get people oriented. This is a picture imagine you're standing on Broad at around Hemingway and you're looking back towards downtown. That signalized intersection you see in front of you is the crossing of 177 and Broad. And the next rendering is a concept rendering that shows a multi-use trail on the north side, left-hand side of the screen there. You see the sidewalk sort of magically turned into a multi-use trail. And that's one concept. It could be on the right side of the screen. It could be down the middle. It'll be determined in the design phase in consultation with the town and the public. And then once past Hemingway Street, the proposed alignment crosses into private property and public property directly behind the homes on the west side of Hemingway, right there. And then as we enter town-owned property, Norton Park town property, we head away from further west in order to minimize wetland. That entire parcel is, identified and mapped as wetland. So in order to keep those impacts down, we're headed further west towards Norton Park Road, and we sort of start to approach the Norton Park Road area near Mancini Way, and we hug the shoulder of the road there for 100 yards or so until we reach that existing bridge that you all are familiar with that crosses the canal there at the 90-space parking lot in Norton Park.
And we should just mention that as it enters Norton Park property here, this is a little bit different than what was shown in October. Previously it had gone just straight down and crossed into the park with a new bridge over the canal. And we actually received a comment showing it going further to the west. To get further away from the houses was the primary reason. The commenter had suggested that, but it also has a number of really good qualities in that we don't have to build a new bridge, saves cost, avoids some wetlands impact, and then also is further away from the houses on Hemingway, so it was sort of a win-win, so we didn't make that adjustment.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim. Yeah, that is the other shift in the alignment that has changed, minor shift that has changed since our October 18th meeting. Once in Norton Park proper, this is a rendering, concept rendering of what that trail alignment could look like in that Norton Park property behind those Hemingway houses. That was a photograph from the woods there behind Hemingway. So again, we're into Norton Park now at the existing 90-space parking lot there. The trail is proposed to run along the east side of the canal itself. That may or may not necessitate the parking lot being shifted slightly, which was, I know, a previous design the town had in order to accommodate that facility. And then it would just follow down past the swimming pool, past the neighborhood sidewalk connection out to Hollyberry Lane, and then it would stay straight, staying on the east side of the canal, following the historic towpath, which doesn't look like many people have been walking it as of late. I know a lot of the folks who grew up here probably are familiar with walking that canal towpath, but it's a bit overgrown now. But that is the proposed alignment, and it stays that way all the way down to Town Line Road, where we meet Southington's section of the trail that they currently have under design. That is a quick walkthrough. I do want to mention the ADT on Town Line Road is right around 4,800, eastbound speed at 38 miles an hour and westbound at 38 miles an hour.
And Mark, we have some alternates in this section.
Yes, down here at the end, thank you for reminding me of that. Near Broad Street, there's two alternatives that are Pearl Street south to Willis, and then down Hemingway into the park. And the other one is to stay on Broad all the way to Hemingway itself and come all the way down the full length of Hemingway into Norton Park. And the other one in the south by Town Line Road, should that alignment not be feasible due to environmental limitations or right-of-way limitations, you can come out at the end of Robert Jackson Way, crossing and following the rear property line of those industrial parcels. That comes out onto Town Line Road, and then just follow Town Line Road back to Redstone, which is where Southington's project meets up. So those are some options should the designers run into any issues there. So in summary, Alignment C, out of all the alignments that were looked at, performed the best for a number of reasons. An off-road trail facility at 98% is a huge accomplishment. Off-road trail facilities are obviously safer than an on-road facility, minimizing those impacts and those conflict points with cars and other non-trail users. The driveway crossings, both residential and business, things like that. Environmental impacts were minimized to the greatest extent possible, and this alignment scored very well on the environmental sensitivity scale. Connectivity, obviously connecting to downtown was a huge priority, and we think that'll be a big benefit for Plainville. The alignment does stay outside of Tomaso Nature Park, and right-of-way impacts were minimized. There's about a dozen total right-of-way impacts on this alignment. So for these reasons, we've determined that alignment C is the most practical and feasible alternative of all the ones that have been looked at over the last year and a half. So at this point, I'll turn it back over to Teresa. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple more slides. Our schedule moving forward, here's what happens next. We are here tonight to listen and to gather feedback from you, the town council, as well as from the public. We continue to receive comments online through our website, as well as emails to Tim, and we take those seriously. We are working actively right now to prepare the draft final report. It is a concept plan that goes through our process as well as the details as we have them for Alignment C, as well as the connection to CT Fast Track. We know that there will be a discussion in that final report about potential construction phasing, as well as potential funding sources that could be used to construct the project. It is possible that a part of the alignment will be on road during an early phase, with an ultimate goal of the full build out of the project being off road. And that's the reason why we're showing some of the dashed lines of the alternates throughout the alignment. You've seen this graphic before. It really splits our effort up into 3 main steps. We are completed with our phase 1, identifying the alternatives. We are completed with phase 2, which is refining the alternatives and identifying one that we can call our preliminary preferred alternative. And we are currently in phase 3, preparing the draft of the final plan. And finally, a reminder that the project itself, that we're still in the planning phase, and that's why it can be confusing with all the unknowns and the dashed lines and the ranges still. We are not in the design phase yet, that once we have this concept plan and we're completed with this phase, it is only then that the project would be moved into the design phase. And a lot happens in design. You have conceptual, you have preliminary, and you have final design before you then move into a construction and opening the trail. So I think at this point, thank you for your time, and we're here to answer questions.
I think before we get to questions, I'd like to have Bruce Donald to come up and speak about what experiences the Farmington Canal Trail has had in other communities in Connecticut, especially as it relates possibly to some of the concerns that were expressed on the earlier slides. Bruce, not all of them, we don't necessarily need a repeat, but I think just looking for at least what the experiences have been in other communities with regards to the trail and concerns that people had both before construction and what they experienced afterwards. I know you've been in Connecticut for a while and
Yep.
you're very familiar with this trail.
So just so you're aware, I am the legislatively appointed chair of the Connecticut Greenways Council. My day job is I'm the Tri-State Coordinator for the East Coast Greenway Alliance. So my section of the East Coast Greenway is Trenton, New Jersey to Sterling, Connecticut, and 350 miles. Previous to that, the last 2 years, for 13 years, I was the president of the Farmington Valley Trails Council. So I've been around basically for 17 years building bike trails in central Connecticut. So I've seen a lot over the years. And one of the things I've seen that I think is most important, in fact, it's really, I think, critically important when you're viewing this project, is these projects as community builders. I've seen absolutely dramatic changes in towns once these facilities are built out. They're not just amenities, they're not just linear parks. Now you'll hear a lot of people try to put these projects, I think, in a specific mold, and they're more than that in almost all cases. You hear a lot of planners will talk about alternative transportation corridors. Well, that's planner speak for everybody that's not using them as parks. They're out there commuting. They're going and getting a loaf of bread instead of using their car. So it's a one-to-one improvement on fossil fuel use. So there's a lot of reasons, I think, to look at this, not just for the town, but for the region. As you're all well aware, this is part of a much larger chain, 3,000 miles of East Coast Greenway, of course, from Calais, Maine to Key West, Florida. Goes through 450 communities, is now 32% completed off-road, which is quite amazing when you think about it, after 25 years of work. And it's about 50% completed in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Connecticut right now is about 47% as of the end of this year, with all the projects that have been completed off-road and done. There are currently 16 numbered DOT East Coast Greenway projects in Connecticut alone. That does not include this project. This project, of course, is not designed. It doesn't have a number. But there's 13 miles completed this year in Connecticut. There will be 14 miles completed next year in Connecticut. And, given the timeline, which we don't exactly know, Plainville can look to be completed sometime in the next 4 years. So, this is very exciting for everybody. Obviously, the East Coast Greenway is behind this in a very big way. And I really just wanted to come here to answer questions. I know that our previous folks said, Tim, you did a good job, I think, talking about some of the concerns. I'm here to weigh in on those if you'd like me to, from personal experience, as opposed to anecdotal experience. So I urge you, if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Does anybody have questions? I mean, I think we'd appreciate hearing your experiences, specifically about some security concerns that some folks have had. Property, vandalism, some of that has come up, and things of that nature that we may not be immediately familiar with, but maybe you could help us with some of those things.
Absolutely. So, Tim got to some of that. What happens is, as the trails get built, they essentially become self-policing. Here's how that works. As they get more and more usage, you literally have, and I think you even said this, eyes on the trail. And essentially what that is that's a self-policing component that occurs when it starts really actually becoming a linear park. So before that time frame, kids may have had access to it or whatever. Some of these spots, somehow I don't think they're camping out in the back of Carling or some other spots. I think realistically there are a couple of spots that we looked at that had that potential. But realistically, what happens, in fact, is that there's very little crime. And I know that Chief's going to talk in a minute here about his experiences. But I would urge you also, if you wanted to, on your own, call up, say, Chief Ingridson in Simsbury or Chief in Farmington. What you'll find is that there's a little bit of graffiti. There are some instances of vandalism. But as also was mentioned, those tend to go away after about a year, 18 months, because it becomes very apparent that that's not a place where you want to do that. You're going to get caught. So that's been our experience.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Yes, Mary? Just wanted to confirm, obviously, Plainville would be somewhat unique because we would not be able to use any form of rail.
Yes, yep.
But we're not complete outliers either, as I understand it, that there's about 10 miles of the Canal Heritage Trail in Connecticut going through a variety of different communities, different segments that were not built on the trail.
Yeah, there's a number of instances. So from north to south, you've got, in fact, it turns out that Granby has 1.1 miles of trail that they never expected to get because of this issue. So if you go up Simscroft Farms now, it used to be Imperial Nurseries, up in East Granby, it's mostly in East Granby, we had to build 1.3 miles around it. Another great example, and you may have all seen it, is the trail along Route 10 in Simsbury. That, of course, is directly a result of not wanting to build it through a TNT factory at Dyno Noble. So that's an obvious choice. Another easy one, and in fact also is useful because it's the only major culvert that would look a lot like the Route 72 culvert, is the center of Avon. So there is actually a culvert under 44 there, and if you wanted to take a look at that, that's what a bike trail looks like when it's going under a major state route. That's another about a mile or so that's not off the railroad right-of-way that couldn't be built at the time, and since then has basically been, it's a 10, 12-foot side path on going through that facility there. And there's others. Probably the most important one right now is actually being built, which is the last piece of Cheshire. And that piece is 0.67 miles. It has to go through wetlands to go around a certain company that I won't name, but we all know who they are. That was in litigation for a while. Essentially what they had done is they had built on the right-of-way. And it was just not going to work. So what happened was we actually designed around it. That's a DOT design. I think it's going to be a very successful design. It's actually ahead of schedule. So if you'd like to see a concrete pier type structures, which could potentially be a design that you might see. That's being built as we speak, off of Cornwall Avenue and West Main, right? Yep. So I'm glad you asked that question.
We're not complete outliers.
No, not at all. No. Obviously, it's much easier to build on the right of way. I mean, let's be serious. It's there. But no, there's a lot of experience in Connecticut and obviously elsewhere where it's built. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions for Bruce? No?
Can I make a comment, Madam Chair?
Of course.
I enjoyed very much being out there on Saturday and seeing. First off, I saw some incredible places in Plainville that are hiding in plain sight that I didn't know existed that were beautiful. And I've heard comments about crime. And I think people like to think of major crimes.
Yeah.
Personal injury, hurting other people. While we were out there, I don't know, was there 10 of us, 12 of us? We witnessed unauthorized ATV usage happening while we were out there. Clearly somebody's hosting a bonfire in those woods at night.
Yep.
Empty beer cans, empty beer bottles. This is going to eliminate crime in those areas. That's happening right now.
Yeah, it tends to do that.
Yeah, I mean, how do you have an ATV riding through there when there's people going through there, you know?
Yeah.
How do you host a keg party on a Friday night? You know, if there's people in these areas regularly, I think it's going to reduce those type of things if people, when they're thinking about crime, aren't thinking are happening, and they're happening. You know?
Actually, there's another thing I should have mentioned that most towns, in fact, now have bicycle police. And in fact, they informally tend to go down the trail at periods of time.
Yeah, we had bicycle police in Norton Park this summer, which I thought was great, and it'd be a great program on something like this. But think about it. It's not just major crime. You know, there's a lot of smaller things happening that impact homes. You know, I don't want to listen to a quad in my backyard.
Yeah, right.
I got no problem listening to a bicycle in my backyard, or children laughing, or people jogging. I don't want to listen to a quad in my backyard or a dirt bike. So keep that in mind, that there's more than just major crime. There's a lot of things going on that shouldn't be.
Yep. Anything else?
Okay.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this.
Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah.
Appreciate your thoughts.
I'd like to ask the chief to step forward and give a little bit of his experience, especially as it relates to safety and other issues.
Good evening. Thanks for inviting me.
Good evening, Chief.
Okay, so my perspective is from a 35-year law enforcement veteran, and being involved with the trails in Simsbury since their inception. I was there when they were being built and designed, etc. I patrolled them on bicycle, on foot, by cruiser, going to plenty of medical calls on them, plenty of nuisance calls to check on people or whatever. What I come away with after 35 years of being involved in policing is that the more good people you have in an area, the less crime you have. And people have said this, but I live it. The more witnesses you have, the less likely you're going to have crime. If anyone's interested in having a more robust and more animated conversation with me, feel free to stop in and see me, whether in groups or one-on-one. I'd be more than happy to have you to the station or meet you at your convenience and talk about my experiences in a more thorough manner. But I think the gist of it is, look at the demographics of who uses a trail. And what I have found is it's families, children, it's people recreating by walking, some elderly people enjoying a walk, families with their bicycles, bicycle trailers, people with their bike seats on the back with their kids. These are the types of people who use it. It is not felony highway. Okay, so somebody inspired the conversation about the Hamden homicide. I am with you. I understand that's disturbing. I agree with you. I've spent my entire adult life in a protect and serve mission, so I'm not minimizing that a homicide took place in the town that I served for over 25 years in Simsbury. You have to look at these cases and understand that some of them are an anomaly. I cannot discuss the Simsbury case in detail, but it wasn't because of the bike trail. That person, that unfortunate victim, a wonderful person, I've done some research on the case, she happened to exercise regularly there. That was her outlet. That was where she would be. In and of itself, I won't get into detail, but in and of itself, that speaks to what that case is about. The Hamden case, I spoke personally to Chief Thomas Wadra, a huge supporter of the bike trail. They have 9.8 lineal miles, I guess, through Hamden, and a homicide took place. Now, the newspaper said near the bike trail. I've read the article and kind of touched up on what did the newspaper actually say. In several different reports, it says near the trail. My understanding from the chief in Hamden is that it was in a wooded area, secluded, that was adjacent to a distance from the trail. Did the crime take place because of the bike trail? The chief says absolutely not. These were four known people that the police were familiar with, and by no means is it the bike trail bringing that kind of crime to that area. It just happened to be that that crime would have taken place anywhere. Again, I'd like people to look at the demographics of who uses a bike trail. You have athletes, you have people who recreate, you have people that are genuinely good people. I've policed for 35 years with the idea in mind that more than 9 out of 10 people I meet are good people who want safety and health and well-being for their families, and maybe that 1% of people who commit a crime that we come in contact with, it could be scary. I get it. But the majority of people, we can't lose concept, and I don't want to lose concept as a police officer, and I don't want our citizenry to lose the concept that most people are good. They're just enjoying the trail. They're not out looking to commit crimes. A lot of these towns that we're talking about have the mixed use. They have the businesses. They have the residential abutting the trail. The town I live in, Avon, walked the trails, recreated on them, brought my kids up around the trails. The story about the fences is a real story. I've lived that. Fences went up, fences came down. I would recommend, just as a law enforcement officer, again, my perspective is purely as a police officer, put the fence up. You can't see out either. So you want to see what's going on? You don't put up a 12-foot stockade fence or an 8-foot stockade fence like some of the homes that I've seen. I've also seen in Simsbury where they put doors in the fences because people wanted to access the trail. We lived through initial complaints from some of the businesses, good friends of mine, the Bidwells, with their nursery on Route 10 down at the Avon line. They're going to be stealing my flowers. Didn't happen. All right. Does it happen here and there? Of course. No one should get up here at the podium and say nothing ever happens on a trail. Of course some things do. But the abundance of crime that takes place on a trail is the graffiti or the simple mischief. But what I have noticed is, by and large, it's a great reduction of crime because you have parents who don't want to tolerate, somebody referred to people who are committing crimes as riffraff at one of the meetings, and I kind of smiled because what does this riffraff look like? Because to be honest with you, it's not pervasive. That's my experience. That's actually, boots on the ground experience with dealing with this for at least 20 years. Will we need to be out there? Yes. Will we provide additional service? Yes. I'd like to think that we will turn this into another feature for the town of Plainville where all of you could be very proud of us with the way we protect and serve. So I'm ambitious about that. I want to see us engaging with people throughout these areas. And if, again, it's a sincere offer. If anyone wants to meet with me or wants to get a group of people together with me, I'd love to talk about my experiences on the bike trails in depth. If you have any questions for me, Madam Chair.
I'm all set. Any questions for the chief?
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your
Thank
time. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go through a couple of other items that I have under my report and move forward. One is the financial dashboard, and I will say that the financial dashboard through November 30th was included in the information package for this evening's meeting and has been posted on the town website. I think it was posted on Friday. Before reviewing the dashboard, I did want to discuss the impact that the state legislature and governor have imposed on Plainville as a result of the reduction in state aid and the governor's holdbacks. Because the state budget was not adopted within their normal time frame, the town council waited until the last possible moment before setting the mill rate on June 12th. Due to the recent actions taken by the state legislature and Governor Malloy, Plainville is slated to lose $1.9 million in state aid from what was anticipated when the mill rate was set back in June. Learning of this significant reduction almost halfway through the fiscal year does not leave many options in how to address the shortfall. In addition, since March of this year, The health insurance fund has been experiencing insurance claims significantly above what was anticipated as well. In the mid-1990s, Plainville switched from a fully insured plan to a self-insured plan. Since that time, the town has paid for the actual claims incurred rather than allowing for health insurer to add their profit or risk on top of the anticipated/actual claims. For many years since that time, health insurance fund has maintained a surplus. However, since March of this year, actual claims have greatly exceeded the expected claims by almost $2 million. Coupled with other expenses from the health insurance fund, the deficit in the current health insurance fund now stands at approximately $2.3 million. The results of all this is that Plainville cannot ignore the current status of the health insurance fund when addressing the reduction in state aid. The Town Council Budget Subcommittee held a workshop earlier this evening and reported that they have identified $677,300 in expenditure savings/reductions for the current fiscal year. These include savings realized in the Board of Education spending, totaling $220,000, reducing the debt service line item by $287,000, capital improvement adjustments of $73,000, and general government reductions of almost $100,000. The subcommittee is also proposing to use unassigned fund balance of $2 million to address the shortfall in the health insurance account. However, this still leaves a shortfall of almost $1.2 million in the current fiscal year. The subcommittee is recommending that a supplemental tax levy of 0.75 mils be approved for the fiscal 18 budget. It's the current fiscal year. For the average homeowner currently paying a little bit over $4,000 in taxes, that means a house valued at $178,650, assessed at $125,055. They currently pay about $4,100 in taxes. This would result in an increase of 2.3% or $94. The supplemental tax levy is expected to raise approximately $990,000, still leaving a projected deficit in the current fiscal year of $235,000. The subcommittee recognized and is hopeful that this could be reduced by the end of the fiscal year if past budget trends continue. And then we have the uncertainty of where the state budget is going to happen going forward as well. There is an item under new business regarding this recommendation. If a supplemental tax levy is approved, the bills would be mailed on February 1st, and taxpayers would be given 60 days to pay the unexpected bill before delinquent interest is applied. And I know we discussed this during the work session earlier this evening. Next is I have the high school track settlement. An executive session was held during the last town council meeting to discuss the proposed settlement with respect to the high school track dispute. A mediation session with the retired Judge Jonathan Silbert was held on December 1st. After 8.5 hours of mediation and hearing from all involved parties, the mediator suggested a settlement. The town council authorized the terms of the recommended settlement after their discussion in executive session, and that was during the open session at the last council meeting. It was at the end of the meeting. A portion of the settlement requires the town to contribute $43,334 towards the portion of the milling and repaving of the track. This amounts to 1/3 of the cost of this work. It should be noted that the contractor was looking to recoup costs in excess of $275,000, and the consultant was looking to be reimbursed for their work in excess of $70,000. Those went away, other than the $60,000. Should also be noted that the consultant would also be contributing towards a portion of the paving and milling in the amount of $16,666. Town staff has posted on the town website a document entitled Plainville High School Track Mediation Summary, December 4, 2017. This document explains in more detail the mediation process and the rationale for the proposed settlement recommendation. The funds to pay for the town's portion of the settlement will come from the turf field account and not from the general fund. Just want to emphasize that. There are existing funds in the turf field account that came from state grants and a grant from a private foundation, and the funds to pay for this will not come from the general fund. Scott Colby's not here this evening, so I don't have happenings and probably don't want to stretch it out anyhow. So As far as the financial dashboard, it's been posted online. I think we've gone through at least where we stand in the current fiscal year. And unless you have any questions about the financial dashboard, I'll just field questions at this point in time.
Does anybody have any questions for Robert about the dashboard? No? Okay, if they're all set, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And any questions about anything else, I'll prepared to answer as well. So.
Okay. Okay, moving on. We are in our public comment section of the meeting. During this portion of the meeting, we welcome the public to come to either podium. Please state your name and address. You'll be given one opportunity to speak to the council for 3 minutes. I have a list that has been already created, so I will go through that list first, and then others that have not signed up, we will call them as they arise. The first one is Catherine LaBella.
Catherine LaBella. I'm a property owner of 50 Pierce Street. I oppose a trail that splits the Pierce Street neighborhood and affects other neighborhoods in town. Tonight, I would like to respond to the idea that expressing concerns about the current proposed alignment is premature because the plan is conceptual in nature. While I thank Mr. DeVoe for addressing some of the concerns I brought up at the November 20th council meeting, it is my belief that the time to talk with our elected officials is now. Your first vote will start a process that will impact us for years to come. Although we are being told that the GAPS closure plan is in a conceptual phase, residents of the Old Mill condominiums are being affected by the plan now. I'm aware of at least 5 people who are currently talking about leaving the complex. 2 units have recently gone on the market. Lest you think this is a good thing, these people are teachers, healthcare professionals, retirees, and active members of town committees. Many of them are longer-term residents who have prided themselves in keeping the complex well-maintained and presentable. The impact of this proposed trail is real to people now. I do not stand before you expressing concerns and giving you information about such things as privacy issues, graffiti, and property damage because these issues are premature or conceptual. My preference would be to stay at home and prepare for the holidays. But I believe you need to hear our concerns now because they are real. The Board of Directors and Management Company at Old Mill have long maintained a balance of keeping reasonable association fees and sustaining the property. As you know, the complex is almost 30 years old and remains attractive. Those of us who are longer-term property owners know that our association fees were used to repair and eventually replace sections of fencing when someone caved them in from the railroad side of the fence. We know that our fees were used to repaint sections of fencing because of graffiti. We know what it is like to pick up small liquor bottles from our property, and yes, from the street, when someone littered the street on Friday nights for over a year. And we know what it is like to be awakened by music from a local bar and by people loudly walking home after the bar closed. We are aware that despite complaints, this did not end until the bar ultimately closed. The potential impact of this trail is real to us now. It is not conceptual. Finally, we know and you know that people living near the trail in other towns have experienced property damage, graffiti, and other safety issues. I am sure that the woman from Southington, referenced in articles I submitted to you, whose pool was destroyed over 4 times by vandals using knives, would have been told that the foremost consideration of the trail design is safety. I have no question that businesses in Southington, faced with continuously removing graffiti for their property, were told that the trail would be good for business. No one wants to design something that will put neighborhoods in jeopardy. However, we know from experience that sections of this trail have done just that. In the near future, you will have an opportunity to request that alternative plans be developed. We ask that you do so. I respectfully request that this full statement becomes part of the public record along with the council minutes. Thank you.
Next person is Gail Dennehy. Gail.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to everybody. Happy New Year.
To you.
Thank you. to keep this down here. I've stood before you before, and I'm just going to read a little bit of my letter and then just some comments. I listened tonight to the proposal again, the planning stages. I live on Perrin Road. I live at the end, 28 Perrin Road. Gail Dennehy, my husband, Regine Carrier. We're not in favor of the bike trail, and just again listening tonight, maybe some of my concerns, our concerns on the street, have been addressed and maybe just weren't mentioned, but I just want to bring them up again. The north side of Perrin Road, which is off of Northwest Drive, it rises, and it's been our experience there that there might be a line of sight problem if the bike trail, walking trail comes up Perrin Road that way. I've heard several versions of how it would actually come up the street, whether it be off-road or adjacent to the left or right side of the street, and then take a left onto Johnson Avenue there. And at that corner at Johnson Avenue, there's a bus stop many times a day. We've got several buses stopping. We've got kids getting off, getting on, and there's already a lot of traffic there, and this very well might add to it. It's not a wide street, so to add the trail or a bike path there is just something that's very concerning to me. Something that was not mentioned, and I think I probably speak for some of the other people on the street, when I bought there, this was a street, and still is a street, that's pretty quiet. And I bought it for what we call quiet enjoyment. That would go away. The way it looks like the planning stage at this point, some of it would not probably impact me at the end of the road, but it would impact me at the beginning of the road and my neighbors as well. So I still have some fairly big concerns. I am open to the idea of having a bike path. I think that, and walking trail, I think it's a great idea for a lot of reasons that were mentioned tonight. I'm just not so sure of the entire path, and maybe some other planning might want to be accomplished here. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next person that has signed is Candace Hall. Candace?
I'm Candace Hall. I live at 113 Shuttle Meadow Road, where the stop sign at the intersection of Shuttle Meadow and River Street is invisible. Just wanted to let you know there's still the cloak of invisibility on that stop sign because people do not stop their cars. And they, one of these days, there's going to be a very, very serious accident. So I'm just waiting and hoping it won't happen when I live there or when any of my friends are there. Tonight, I wanted to let you know that I heard that the hours of operation of the Plainville Public Library would be shortened, reduced. And I think a public library in any town is a very important organization. It is open to everyone in town, regardless of their age, their education, background, and I think that closing or reducing hours at a public library is not a wise thing to do, and I would hope that the town council is aware of that too.
Thank you. There are no others that have signed up to speak, but I will open it up. If anybody would like to speak to the council, please raise your hand. You'll be given 3 minutes. Does anybody wish to speak to the council? Over here. Hi, Gail.
Gail Black, 4 CNC Avenue. I hope I'm going to be, there's going to be more than myself standing up for the trail. I've rollerbladed in Farmington day and night. And nighttime, the only thing that bothered me were the bats and the insects hitting my glasses. I've never had an issue when I've been on the trails by myself. And, you know, nowadays everybody carries a cell phone. If something was going to happen, I know I'd probably be the first one to call. So I don't, and I've also seen an accident where a young boy was run over on 177 before any trail. And he ran across the street because his buddies were trying to encourage him. The trails are a place where most people that go there are good. You're not going to see bad people carrying equipment. They're not going to carry flowers down there. It's a relaxing thing. I would like to know where the Route 44 in Avon, I would like to know where that trail is. I've never seen that one. I've been in Avon and Simsbury. I learned to brake on my rollerblades. I'm hoping that these, what do you call it, plans, if we go through with them, will allow some of us to do cross-country skiing and, what do you call it, I can't think of, snowshoeing. You know, we can't do it on the whole trail, obviously, but at least part of it. My skis are waiting to go. I've never used the, what do you call it?
Snowshoes.
Snowshoes. Yeah, see, I hate getting old. And that's my comment about the trail. Regarding the Plainville Library, I have read Mr. Malloy's budget. I don't like him. Anyhow, I didn't vote for him either time. Anyhow, I just want to say his budget is taking away money from the libraries. Right now, you can drop your library book that from one town and they'll take it back. But he wants to take that away. So because they're doing that, maybe the Plainville Library wants to keep that service going, and that's why they're shutting the hours down. That's just you know, they always go for the libraries. They do this all the time. A couple of years back, they laid off 15 librarians at the state library. And one of the librarians was doing 5 jobs. So what happens at the state comes down here. So there could be other reasons why they're shutting the hours back. That's just a comment. And I pay attention because I work part-time at a library. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak to the council? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. Linda Ferguson, 8 Perrin Road. I would like to state first that I'm in opposition of the trail or alignments that have any impact on the neighborhoods in Plainville. Over the past several months, I have been attending the town council meetings as well as the October meeting at the Plainville High School for the Farmington Heritage Trail. I have expressed my opinion and have asked a few questions regarding the trail during this time. I have sat here and I have heard other neighbors and residents speak against the trail. After the last town council meeting, I have to admit that I went home with the opinion that in the end, it is not going to matter how any of the affected residents feel about this. The private steering committee for the trail, and quite honestly the town council and certain town employees, have already made up their minds regardless of the impact on the neighborhoods along the proposed trail in Plainville. What I find very sad is that somewhere along the way, what the trail was supposed to be has been forgotten when it comes to Plainville. It started, as we all know, as rails to trails. For most of the trails, people are happy to have this. Why? Because it took old railroad tracks out, which were ugly, dangerous, and basically useless land, and replaced them with a trail. I too would be happy about this if you took out a railroad line in the front or back of my yard and replaced it with a trail. But that is not the case in Plainville. Instead, this trail will go through or change neighborhoods like Perrin Road, Pierce Street, and some of the others. Yes, other properties and other towns that border this trail may have increased property values. What property wouldn't when you remove a dead, dangerous, unused railroad line? Here in Plainville, that's not what you're going to do. You're going to take established property,
change landscaping, change dynamics of neighborhoods, remove natural barriers, and replace them with whatever you tell us we should be happy with. No one would be objecting to the trail if it would be using the railroad lines as other towns have, or most of the towns. That would have been expected. What people object to is the changes that will be made to their personal property in their neighborhoods. It is easy for people who want the trail to stand up here and be in favor of it, especially when their property is not being impacted. It's easy up here to tell the people, to tell the residents that will be affected by this to basically be happy, or that they need the exercise when their property is not going to be affected at all. In the end, we all know that the pressures to get this path connected and done, but isn't it a shame that certain property owners in Plainville have to have this crammed down their throats because we're not fortunate enough to be able to take the railroad line and make it into something useful and nice. Thank you for your time.
Does anybody else wish to speak to the council?
My thoughts exactly.
Roberta?
Roberta Loria, 18 Perrin Road. Good evening. Thank you for your time. For the benefit of Carol and the minutes, and most of all, for the members here from the CRCOG in VHB, Tim Malone, Teresa Carr, and Mark Jewell. I oppose any trail or alignment that will have an impact on any neighborhood in Plainville. Simply put, if there are no rails, there should be no trails. My son was talking with me recently about one of his classes, American Government. He was very excited talking about how we, the voters, choose candidates whose responsibility it is to represent us, their constituents. We talked about how we do the same thing here in town. Like a pyramid, we, the voters, are the apex or the highest point of that pyramid. Underneath us are the town council that we vote in. Below that are town employees, and below that are third parties or others. My question to this council is, when did this pyramid get turned upside down in this town? When did the opinions and preferences of outside groups have the right to tell town residents what we should, want, do, or should be accepting? We are the residents and taxpayers of this town. You sit in those seats because we voted you in to represent us, not third parties. Dozens of people have come up here and said numerous times no to this trail in their neighborhoods. Some of you on the council have commented at the last meeting that you want it in your neighborhoods. Mark DeVoe has said that he would like it in his neighborhood as well. My request is simple. You want it, then you should be fighting to get it in your neighborhood. Saying it can't be done is no excuse. You need to find a way, if you're true to what you have said, that you want it in your neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak? Mr. Frangos, did you want to? Okay.
Lou Frangos, 10 Fairbank Street. They used to take away my chair, now they take away my microphone. I'll start off by, I'd like to start off by wishing everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and a Happy New Year. And I understand next year is Malloy's last term, the end of the term, so it's a Happy New Year. The second thing I'd like to bring up, I'd like to say thank you to the Department of Public Works of Plainville. Extending the week for leaf pickup and the type of job they did this year was just outstanding. I was getting a little of a heart problem there trying to keep up with them for a change, so my thanks to them. On a more serious note, when I went on I'm on the internet for the town, and I'm sure a lot of other people are too. And there was such a list of agendas of the subcommittee meetings, et cetera, et cetera. My question regarding that is, and I'm thankful that I've got the copies, are residents allowed to attend these meetings?
Are you speaking about the budget meeting?
Yes, the town council subcommittee meeting minutes.
Sure. They were posted, they're public meetings. Yes, they were posted.
Then I missed it. Then it's my fault. But in the future, then a resident can't attend.
Yeah.
That's all I knew, and that was my mistake.
Right.
One of the quick things, and I noticed this was with the financial dashboard, and I'm just throwing this out because, again, it's a learning curve. We're getting impacted by $1.9 million from the state of Connecticut. And what I did is I took a quick look at our financial dashboard. I always take a look at the tail end of major projects reports. And what I noticed on here, major project reports, the last one is the Plainville High School parking lot project, $1.7 million. Why can't we postpone that for a couple of years? And there would take $1.7 million out of $1.9 million right off the clock. Has anybody even thought of that?
Well, that's a different project than us trying to balance our budget right now halfway through the year. That's a completely different, that's going to be bonded money. It's not something we can do midway through this fiscal year. Would you like to embellish, Robert?
The high school project is going to be paid for over 20 years. So
The 1.7 million.
Yes, it's going to be paid
Okay.
for over 20 years, so you're not going to save $1.7 million out of the gate. You're going to save 1/20th of that
Then
by delaying it.
that answers that question. All right. Now these will be real quick, and this has to do with the trails. Again, curiosity, the cost of the trail, how much will it cost the town of Plainville, or the total cost to Plainville to complete this trail, if we were to commit?
The plan is zero.
There's no cost at all to the town of
The
Plainville.
state is telling us that they will pay, between the state and federal government, they'll pay the full cost of the trail.
It takes care of that. Number two, is it possible at all, the presentation tonight, can I have a copy? Can residents have a copy of that presentation?
Absolutely, and we'll post it on the town website tomorrow as well.
Thank you
can
very
have a hard
much.
copy of it as well. I
Takes
don't
care
have
of
a
that.
hard copy right now, but we'll get it to you.
Thank you. Material for the road. I said material for the road because I noticed that the pictures, it almost looked like wooden planks in some of the areas. What type of material would be used there for these roadways?
Well, the trail would be paved,
Asphalt?
yes.
Okay, that's what.
There may be areas where there would be a walkway or something that has to be elevated.
Yes, sir.
Whether that would be, wood or whether that would be cement is in the design phase.
Alrighty. And this was just an offshot, just looking at the pictures. I didn't initially write anything down, just looking at pictures. What caught my eye was one with a bicycle with the child and a trailer in the back. Are the portions of this road, if I'm correct, they're going to go onto some of main roads? Is that kind of dangerous with a bicycle with the children in the back?
There would be, the plan is, when we talk about the fact that the trail's going to be 98% off the road, that means that the road, it's going to be off the road. It's not going to be in the travel portion of the road. Like if it goes along 177, it's going to be outside the travel portion of the road. It's going to be off this, it's not going to be in the road. It's going to be off the road, on the other side of the curve. Same thing with Broad Street. Broad Street, the plan would be to narrow Broad Street and completely separate the trail from the travel portion of the road. Where it would be exactly would come out of the design phase of the project. So when we say 98% of the trail is proposed to go off-road, that's what we're speaking about. It's not going to be, like coming up Perrin Road, a question was, is it going to be on the road? No, the plan is that it be completely off the road on Perrin Road, be completely off the road on Johnson Avenue. So it would not be on the travel portion of the road. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. If I may just ask, I'm not impacted, but just the thing that bothers me about it, myself, is even where I live now, you see a strange person every so often marching up, you can't help but eye contact. And people living in this case like the Perrin Road type of thing, you're going to see new faces all the time. And that may be disconcerting to some. I guess that's paramount in a lot of these people's minds. That's all I'm trying to say here. I'm getting carried away. Thank you. let's see who maintains it.
almost
And now I have if I may ask one question.
Okay.
All right, the gentleman right here, because you have the knowledge base. You'd mentioned, and I've heard it in prior meetings, this, if nothing else, not nothing else, one of the things that will bring to the town of Plainville the benefits. And I'm speaking for myself only. What type of benefits would people riding through town on a bicycle bring to the town?
Would you like me to address that?
And I'll leave the podium.
Well, the benefits can also be to the people that live in the town of Plainville, getting out, recreating, getting outside, visiting parts of our town that they may not have otherwise seen. That's a benefit to the town of Plainville and the people that live here. If there's other folks that come through our town that decide to come by and stop in the center or visit a small shop, that's a benefit to those businesses. So the benefits are, varied depending on who's going to be using it.
Well,
But I would think
the
a lot
nature of the
people in
beast, I'm looking
Plainville
at
are gonna
revenue.
use it.
Myself, I look at revenue. Is this going to bring a revenue to the town? That's my own curiosity. I'm not saying it should or it shouldn't.
Well, I think that's certainly a possibility of people coming through Plainville wanting to explore businesses that are not right on the trail, but coming through our center and other areas. Sure, I would expect that.
And where's my general? I'm sorry, just one quick one. And the way I understood, there's going to be a strong possibility that our police department will have bike patrols. Is that?
We already have. We already have.
We have one.
I'm saying specifically with it would be part of the design would be controlling the pathways. We would have bike police.
We have had discussions. I have had discussions with the police chief about yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Does anybody else wish to speak to the council? Yes, sir.
Dave Albert, Hollyberry Lane. I wanted to change up and complain about something else to the trail for 1 minute. The dog.
Thank you for that.
Okay, I will after. The dog park. I won't be here when they're having that meeting, but there's no way you should ever put a dog park 150 feet from anybody's house. Now, I know there's 2 or 3 people left on Norton, what is it, Norton? Robert Street.
Robert Street Extension.
Right.
There's nobody left on Norton.
Okay, right there. Okay. But in any case, you should not put a dog park 150 feet from someone's house. I live near Norton Park. We actually had somewhat of a dog park already, even though nobody knew it because we had a Little League field there and it was all fenced in. And we had signs, no dogs, clean up after your dogs. And if you go there now, they took the fence down. It's absolutely disgusting. You go Norton Park March, April, it's absolutely disgusting. People don't pick up after their dogs. And I cannot imagine what's going to happen over there with nobody watching them. So that's my complaining about that. I do have one question on the trail. Does the town inherit the liability once that's complete? If somebody gets hurt and wants to sue the town? I don't want to put our attorney on. No comment.
A couple of things. There are laws in the state of Connecticut that make towns immune from liability based upon allowing for recreational, it's called the recreational use statute, that limits the town's liability to, unless the town's negligent, somebody just can't sue because they fall down on the trail, for example. So there's very limited liability as a result of these trails. I can tell you that in other communities that have them, they have not experienced any significant issues at all. Does that mean that people can't sue the town or try to bring suit against the town? But the result is that the towns are immune from a lot of liability.
Okay. Has any thought been given to improving the canal in Norton Park? It needs something. I mean, that thing is just deteriorating.
Now, you realize that the trail is going to go on the east side of the canal, right? Not on the Hollyberry side.
Right, exactly. Okay. Yeah, I'd be complaining even more if I knew that.
At least the current proposal is that it goes on the towpath.
Yeah, my.
So that certainly would open it up and make it more visible so that people would be more aware of it. I mean, does it make
Yeah,
sense?
but that's my point, is
Well,
that
let
if
me
you
finish.
look at it, it's so in disrepair. I don't know if you could dredge it, or but
Well,
maybe
part
you
of-
could apply to the state to get
Part
money.
of that
but-
is because out of sight, out of mind.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
The
I
fact
know
is,
exactly
nobody
what you're
really
saying.
knows that there's a canal
Right.
that goes through there, except for certain small stretches.
Right, but has any thought been given to?
Oh, we have dredged the canal at least twice in the last 10 or 15 years. It does, it does fill itself back in over time.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak to the council? Yes?
Hi, I'm Carrie Zach, 87 Hollyberry Lane, and like Gail Dennehy said, the reason that she bought her house, was for the quietness of the area, and being on Hollyberry, it was a nice quiet street, and I did bring up that our backyard is maybe 50 feet or so from the canal, and the proposed path would be on the tow path. And so it's just really, really close to my house. And I think Norton Park is going to be an origination place for people to get on the path. They're going to go there, they're going to park, and they're going to come, probably right by my house. Now, a couple things. I walk at the park regularly. I've been harassed a few times. Yes, there's plenty of families there and nice people there, but I've been harassed. And when I walk there, I carry a mace with me. And I called the police, and they said it is legal to do that. So I carry that when I'm walking by myself there. And I just feel that, the path is really, it's going to become an extension of the park, right behind my house because of the close proximity. So my, request would be that, because of the wetlands there, that there could be a buffer of at least 250 feet, which is what I was told, that nothing could be built within 250 feet of the canal there because of the wetlands. So if the path could possibly, I know they were talking about, there is another, site they were looking at that end of it, and if it could be pushed back perhaps to give us some privacy and feel, some safety there. And the other thing is the vandalism. I've been at that house for over 25 years, and we've had our tires slashed twice, and screens on the house slashed, and an egg thrown that was frozen, and it broke a window. So we've had vandalism just from the neighborhood. And the canal behind our house in the summer almost dries up. Where we are, it almost dries up, and you can cross it very easily. When it rains, it's like a river, like a flowing river. But when it's not raining, like even today, you could cross it very easily. So I'm just concerned that people from the park or whatever are going to be able to just cross it and come on my property. I have a big fear about that. So maybe that's not a known fact. About the how much water is in it and how easy people can get across it, and that there has been vandalism, and so I wanted to bring up that, and yeah, just the vandalism, the safety, the privacy, preserving the wetlands, and if there was a path behind it, I would not have bought that house 26 years ago, because I like the privacy of the woods. So my request would be if it can be pushed back and have that buffer of wetlands. That's what I would ask.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak to the council? Yes, sir. You'll be next, sir. It's okay, come on. That's okay, Mr. Edmund.
Joel Edmonds, 63 Hollyberry Lane. I have to agree with Carrie, Zach, about pushing the trail over further into property owned by Paul Matteo. I disagree with her about 50 feet. The Mule Hall Trail is like 30 feet behind her property line, as well as my own property line. So I stand by my original feeling is no rail, no trail. I previously mentioned that Plainville has another trail called the Blue Trail, adequate for hiking and mountain biking, and the cost being basically $0, with the maintenance cost about the same, thanks to the Boy Scouts and volunteers. I've never heard of anybody complaining about how invasive it is, because it is not invasive. But Plainville actually has even another trail. This one much shorter, around a football field. People call it a track. Do we need it? No. Did some people want it? Yes. It has not been used much and already is costing Plainville taxpayers thousands of dollars to repair it. I heard about 43 of them. And who is to say it won't bubble up again? I ran on that trail when it was just a stone dust base in my high school years, and it was very adequate, just like most of the other 169 towns in Connecticut that have a regular one. Let's face it, if people are not coming to downtown Plainville after all that was spent on town beautification and bump outs, the trail through town won't make much of a difference to our town's commerce other than the buying of an occasional piece of pizza and a beer. It's strange how sometimes we accept and take things for granted until we lose whatever it was. I'm thinking Broad Street. What a wonderful wide avenue it is. Plenty of parking both sides of the street for the multifamily buildings, funeral homes, churches. I'm guessing that's why they named it Broad Street. My grandfather, Joseph E. Edmond, in winter plowed it with a team of horses using a wide board, as well as my father, Joseph R. Edmond, with more modern equipment back in the 40s. I mentioned church parking on the road previously when I noticed the town manager and folks walking down the sidewalk one sunny afternoon recently, and what they did not see, meaning OLM, church, road parking. They also did not see the conglomeration of cars and vehicles of sorts waiting to get donations of food, etc. from the big white church across from the OLM church on Wednesdays. I was amazed to see so many people who obviously are down and out, hungry for the free food this wonderful church gives away weekly. If this trail comes through, where are these people going to park? With this trail gap closure fiasco, it appears Broad Street is about to change to something God only knows what, not so broad. How can the state of Connecticut and the federal government even consider this horrendous expenditure of funds it will take to appease so few and negatively impact so many? I read the newspapers. We're in trouble. With all the vehicles driving in and backing out of all the driveways, tell me this is not a safety issue. With the sidewalks on both sides, one has to be extremely careful not to run someone over. The old Canal Mule Trail behind my house has withstood the test of time. 180 years now. As far as the natural effect of eutrophication, all that has happened to it is that many adult trees have made their home on it. Moreover, eliminating them would be messy and expensive, disruptive, and very invasive with large equipment. Small equipment could not handle it. The stream is on the edge of it, so along 2,000 feet of silt fence would be useless. By the way, the water finds its way to Long Island Sound, and the state of Connecticut is worried about our sewer treatment plant. What is the relationship with Connecticut Transit and the trail? It's a question that I have to find out about. It appears as though the tunnel under Route 72 is in the floodplain and will take on water from a likely large rain event, which we've recently had 4 inches of rain on October 25th and 26th, plus another inch and a half. Carrie mentioned how it turns into a river. Wetlands inundated by the Mule Hall Trail in the old canal bed and wetlands on the other side. town beautification idea was supposed to spur development downtown. How well did that work? And the powers that be think the trail through town will work? This trail through Plainville is a cruel and disgraceful act towards hundreds of people that would be negatively impacted in neighborhoods, on and across roads, backyards, front yards, through wetlands and floodplains. It is a disruption to nature, altering virgin parcels of land that need to be left untouched. A few people want it, they don't need it. Stop this nonsense. This recklessness of public funds is disgraceful. Plainville has an adequate supply of roads and sidewalks for people to get around or get through. We have paid a lot of money to have them installed and maintained summer and winter. And if you are unfortunate enough not to have a sidewalk, you are actually lucky, because the town can't fine you for not clearing it of snow or properly maintaining it. Plainville does not need this trail gap closure the way that it is being presented now. Rails to trails. That was the half-baked idea in its infancy. Wasn't such a bad idea. No rail, no trail. I rest my case. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak to the council? Yes, sir, please.
Art Marino on 22 Tuttle Street, Bristol, Connecticut. I'm the curator for the Tomaso Nature Park. I just want to let you know the park is closed for the season. I'd like to turn around also say thank you to Vice Chairman Saunders. I took him for a tour through the park, and his wife. And I'd just like to let you know that I say thank you to this committee over here. Just one good thing, okay? They found an alternative route around the nature park, and I'm happy for that. The big thing is now, because of that, I don't have to worry about the wildlife and everything being destroyed. I got a phone call. We have some deer now that have moved into the park. So because of that, like I said, I'd like to say thank you, and I do extend to everybody, okay? I'll be more than happy to take you guys for a tour down through the park come the springtime. So I'll let you know when it opens up, and we'll be all set. And you're going too this time. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else wish to speak to the council that has not spoken before? Anybody else? Yes, sir.
David Spencer, 127 Milford Street Extension. I'm hearing the statement that 98% of this trail is supposed to be designed to be off-road. Then I hear, quote unquote, up to 98% of this trail will be off-road. And I would like a little clarification in that. It's not very clear. I mean, 50% would be included in up to 98%. Could we give a little bit more of a parameter, 90 to 98%?
A 98% or less, or 98% more, what would be helpful to you? You wanted the answer to be more specific?
Well, it gives you an awful lot of room. Yes, is there a parameter? Is there the 90 to 98%? Is it 50 to 98%? Up to 98% could be anything.
Understood. We will answer the question after everybody's spoken, and if there's questions to be answered, we'll ask our experts to do that at the end.
And I've also heard it said tonight that on the experience on other trails that after 18 months or so of vandalism, criminality, thievery, criminal mischief, somehow the criminal element comes to their senses and leaves us alone. I mean, there are places, my experience was on Summer Street in Southington with the trail, and I never saw it end. It may have, I haven't been there in several years, but I don't know. And this other idea that the trail becomes self-policing, I mean, are we serious on that self-policing? Maybe it might in the daylight hours, but how is it going to be self-policing after nightfall? I mean, that's just a very misleading statement. I mean, the criminal mischief happens after nightfall, and people aren't walking the trails. And if the people are the ones that are supposed to be self-policing, I mean, that idea is, close to absurd, and just things to be taken into mind. And I mean, I hear that the cost of the trail is not going to affect the Plainville taxpayer at all. I'm a little skeptical of that, Maybe initially, I think probably the maintenance of it, and if it does affect the Plainville taxpayer at all, I think this little document you gave us tonight should discourage us from going forward with this at this time. Thanks.
Does anybody else wish to speak to the council? John?
John Kislick, 65 Forestville Avenue. I'm going to change it up a little, but you're still not going to like me.
Merry Christmas, John.
Merry Christmas to you. I just want everybody to know that I had nothing to do with that train derailment. The train derailment that I was talking about left the meeting early today, and that person insulted me and every retired person in this town who comes to this meetings when she made a statement that retired people don't have anything else to do but complain. I'll tell you what this retired person has, why I'm here. We consider ourselves watchdogs. And the State Taxpayers Association has a saying, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. We have to stay on top of our government. We elected you, but we have the right to challenge you and question you. And that's what I do. So with that, I have a few other things on my list. I asked about the Pumpkin Festival and the Balloon Festival, if we're covered under those extra costs as overtime cost. I never got an answer, but here's my point for bringing it up. This town council wants to take away $6,348 from the library in Sunday hours. These programs that they have, the balloon and the pumpkin, majority of the people there are from out of town. They're not town residents. Our tax dollars are paying them for enjoyment in our town, and you're going to take away from the library. That's wrong. The money, $6,000, you're going to take that away? That's peanuts. What's wrong with that? The other thing, too, with the Board of Education, I attended their last meeting, but I also attended a meeting on February 10, 2015. I used to attend their meetings a lot. The Board of Ed was looking for, or the administrators were looking for a budget of over $1 million. The board gave them $950,000. Now, I was at the last Board of Ed meeting too, with you, Chairman Puglisi, and you saw, they have a wish list that's out of this world. They have to be held back. If the state, if we have MBR, minimum budget requirement that we're held to, how can the state reduce something to that they're supposed to be paying for? If the state wants to reduce that, I say that should be borne completely by the Board of Ed. Let them do layoffs, administrators, teachers, whatever they have to do. Let's tell the state, you can't do this to us. If you want to do this, you're gonna pay. You're gonna lose teachers, you're gonna lose everything. That's my opinion. The Board of Ed does need to cut back. As far as this budget now, with not wanting to go below 12% in our budget fund, that's a recommended thing. This money, these millions sitting in there are our money. Everybody in this room who pays taxes, that's our dollars. That's a recommendation. I don't like that recommendation. I say we take the rest of the money we need out of that, and then we worry about next budget year if we have to raise the 3/4 mils. Now, to talk about the 3/4 mil levy, I want to read something out of our charter. Chapter 6, Section 5, Council's duties on the budget. The town council may levy annually, first, upon approval of the town meeting, that's the fourth Tuesday in April, the town council may levy annually at the same time as the regular annual taxes for town expenses are levied, a tax not to exceed 2 mils to be assessed upon the taxable property in the town for the benefit of a fund to be known as the Capital and Non-Reoccurring Expenditures Fund, to be used solely to pay the cost of capital improvements. Now, my question, I'm not trying to be smart. I want to know under what authority on our town charter gives you the right to assess us 3/4 of a mil. There's something in here, this handout, pursuant to current state statutes, a supplement tax levy, if there is to be one, must be adopted by February 1st. That's a state statute, but if you have no authority as a town council, how can you assess us? I would like to know what gives you the authority to assess this when it's not in our charter. I'm not trying to be smart, but as a citizen, I don't see where you're allowed to do this. Can somebody answer me?
I can answer that if you like.
Sure.
The state statute supersedes the charter.
I knew you'd have an answer, Mr. Lee.
Well, that's the answer.
Yeah.
Just like if the town council wants to lower the Board of Education budget below the previous
NBR.
year, the state statute, the council under the charter has the authority to do that. The state statute trumps the charter, and it does in this particular instance as well.
But I understood.
And in many other instances.
Yeah, I understood that MBR, there were towns that were allowed to do it because the enrollment did drop a lot.
Right, but not to the degree, you don't have complete flexibility with regards to that.
Okay.
But that's the answer.
I know. But to me, I don't like that.
Well, we don't either.
I know. But why can't we just take some more out of the general fund? You know, take another $1 million out of it, or another percent. Go to 11%. You know, it's just a suggestion.
Okay.
I'd like to say one thing, John, if that's okay.
Sure.
And you know,
this is important.
And it is certainly a legitimate question. And I can tell you that is simply what the state has done for the last 25 years, is kick the can down the road and not make the tough decisions. And the reality is, you make that, if you just take it out of your savings account, you don't have it when, down the road, and guess what? You get the situation that we're in right now with $4 billion deficits projected in 20 and 21.
I agree with you, Mr. Lee, and I understand what you're up against. But when you're still talking, we'll have $6 million in there. And I understand we're getting too close, but, we got to take care of what is now.
And we're not talking about a 3/4 mil increase if you take care of it this year when you don't have it next year. We're talking about a significantly higher mill rate increase for next year just to get even. Just to get even.
Right. Unless the state does something and changes around.
Yes, and if that happens, we'll all party in May. With the new budget, certainly if the state comes through next year with the budget or gives us more money like they promised, then that will certainly be taken into account and things will even out. But based upon what we know today, there's really not much choice.
Okay. I'm going to make you happy. I won't be here at the January 2nd meeting because I have a citizen and property owners meeting so we can discuss issues like this to bring them to you. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Does anybody else wish to speak to the council that hasn't spoken? Anybody else? Last chit? Okay, Joanne. Okay.
Thought you were going to get away with it, right?
I was wishing you were my Christmas present, but it's okay.
Such a tease, Joanne.
Oh, Jesus. Joanne Edmond, 166 West Main Street. What can I say here now that these good people haven't already said? They don't want the trail in their front yard or their backyard. If you want the trail, Wait for an inactive railroad. Or put it somewhere where it's not going to be invasive or intrusive. I've used those two words many times. And that's exactly what this trail is at this point. It's not a good idea to disrupt people's lives, disrupt traffic, disrupt neighborhoods, disrupt individuals. And it's just, you don't seem to get it. You keep pushing and pushing and pushing. These are good people. I have nothing against them. But the whole idea sucks. I'm going to use that word, just like screw the government. I like it. And it's, we the taxpayer, are we the people? And somebody brought that out, Roberta did tonight. Was it you, Roberta? We are at the top of the pyramid. We provide the fuel that make the wheels turn. And as far as I'm concerned, you were polled, and I don't think, on this trail thing, and I don't think you really were listening. Because what I heard from all of you up there was the waffling, go ahead, challenge me on that word, and sitting on the fence. And by this time, you should be listening to the people. They have come here faithfully to tell you that they don't want it in their neighborhood. How can you put it on Pierce Street with that skinny little street? And then take away the width of Broad Street and louse up Perron Road? Certainly, I'm not a victim to this. It's not going to go in front of my house. But all I can visualize is our fences. And then there's the cost. How much is this going to cost? They say nothing to the people of Plainville now. But I believe that this trail is going to have to be patrolled. That means dollar signs in my book for police and cleanup. That's dollar signs. Let me tell you, we have trouble. Trouble right here in River City. Right, Chief? It's coming. Beware. There's a great song called Over There. It's first of all, be prepared, be aware, say a prayer.
Okay.
Say a prayer, be prepared, say a prayer, be prepared.
Okay.
Over there, over here.
Does anybody else wish to speak to the council that has not spoken to us yet?
Weren't you lucky?
Yes. I think we're done. I appreciate your comments. Thank you very much. I appreciate your patience. Okay, we do not have any old business, so we'll move on to the new business portion of our meeting. We have two motions. Who would like to take the first one? I'll give it to you if you don't speak up.
Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Pursuant to Section 265A4 of the adopted State of Connecticut fiscal year 18, fiscal year 19 biennial budget, motion to adjust the mill rate from 32.68 to 33.43 for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2018, and authorize the issuance of a supplemental tax bill by February 1st, 2018.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any comments on the motion?
I'd like to make a comment if I may.
Please do.
Thank you to the subcommittee for putting in the work on this. I was not a part of it. It's unpalatable, but unfortunately at certain times you have to make a tough choice. And I agree with the subcommittee that it's I'd rather space this out between this year and with what we've got in front of us. I don't like that I've been on the town council for a month, and this is what I'm faced
Isn't
with.
this fun, huh?
And, you know, I'm going to hear about the impact, and I'm going to hear about the cost. You're looking at a guy who lost his job last week, and I'm going to have to pay this bill. So I'm right there struggling with you. And unfortunately, I agree, we have to do it. It's unpalatable, but it has my support.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak on this?
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
don't want to repeat everything that I said during the work session, but just to kind of summarize, you know, as a committee, we did work hard to identify that list of savings, and we kept at it until we did increase it as much as we possibly could. We have the health fund to deal with at the same time, which is going to require use of the unassigned fund balance. I do feel strongly on staying with recommended levels, what percentage that should, the unassigned fund balance should constitute of our budget, and I think that it would be somewhat irresponsible to go below that. I'm not thrilled with the supplemental tax levy, but I think for sound management and also not to disrupt services at midpoint in the year. So in the end, it's simply in the best interest of the town.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
As a member of the subcommittee for this budget, I think having to come to the conclusion of raising the mill rate, even by the 0.75 that we're raising it, was probably the most difficult decision I've had to make, and this is my third term. So it was a very hard decision to make, but it was something that was necessary, and that's just the way it is. I'm sorry.
Anybody else wish to speak?
Yes.
Yes.
I also appreciate the fact that the subcommittee did a lot of work on the budget. I despise raising taxes, but I think the legislature and the governor gave us no choice. And I think if we don't do something now, the next couple of years are going to be even worse. So I think we have to do it.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to say anything? I will say that I appreciated the time and energy that the other members of the committee put forward. I will also say this was not an easy decision to reach, and we did not agree on everything. I didn't agree with certain things that ultimately happened, but it was a group that finally came to a determination that this is the only thing we can do right now. And hopefully, I always try to be hopeful that things are going to get better. I will reserve that until the state decides how it's going to get its house in order. There's many things that may not happen. The state of Connecticut cannot balance its budget. Sadly, lots of that is now being pushed down at the local level. We're doing our best. As I said, we didn't all agree on the solution, but ultimately we came to a place where we all decided this is the best we can do right now with the information that we have at this moment in time. So, I will be supporting this. There are no other comments. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Number 2?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Motion to approve the tax refunds is listed on the addendum.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Lee, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, a couple of items. One is that with regards to the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail, nobody on my staff and the people that we've been working with, which includes Plainville residents, is looking to fill this gap and somehow negatively impact people who would live along the trail. Our experience has been that in other communities, this trail has been embraced and has been a great benefit to the communities. And that we don't anticipate that that's going to happen. That's somehow going to be different here in Plainville. I will tell you that the new alignment of the trail now puts the trail directly on my street in front of my house. And I'm happy about that. My wife is happy about that. So, you know, for those of you who say, well, put it in front of your house, there's now going in front of my house. Second thing is that I believe, my staff believes, a lot of the people that have promoted the trail in Plainville for probably a dozen years believe that if not all of the issues, most, if not all the issues, can be addressed during the design phase of the project in terms of the issues that have been brought up. There is very little evidence that trails cause increased crime, increased vandalism, and increased problems. In fact, the experiences have been just the opposite. There's no town in Connecticut that has a trail in it right now, and some of them that have had it for a lot of years are sitting there saying, geez, I wish we hadn't done that, because it's really ruined our community, ruined our neighborhoods. And we're talking about trails that go through backyards as well. Not only along rail areas, but along areas that are off the rail, not along the old rail trail. So none of us who have been involved in this project are looking to do anything negative as far as your properties are concerned. I also believe that there's a strong element in this community who are very supportive of having this trail be finished. We saw evidence of that at the October meeting, where we had 200 people show up. I personally sent an invitation to everyone who was going to be impacted with the trail. And for those of you who were there, and the great majority of the people who were there were people who lived in Plainville, you saw the support. You do not have any evidence to the contrary. It's one thing to say it, it's another thing to take a look at the people who signed up and to determine that the great majority of the people who were in that room were from Plainville. There weren't any plants in the room. There weren't people who were from other towns. They asked them to get up and say something positive and then have most of the people in the room think that that's a good idea. We had the meeting at the library. There was a lot of people who showed up, a lot of them from Plainville, and they were very supportive of this. So the notion that, that the people who have come here to the council meetings on a regular basis and say the same thing every week, that somehow that represents the great majority of the people in this community, I don't believe that's the case. You may believe that's the case, but nobody's looking to ruin your neighborhood. Nobody's looking to negatively impact your neighborhood. Yes, it will be different. And when somebody says, I'm against any trail that impacts your neighborhood, I sit there and say, so you're against the trail if it positively impacts your neighborhood? I think if you're going to say that, my suggestion is that you say that I'm against any trail that's going to negatively impact the neighborhood, not just impact the neighborhood, because most of us who have been involved in this trail process for years believe that this is going to be a great benefit to the town of Plainville, great benefit to the citizens of Plainville, and a great benefit to the people who are going to have the trail adjacent to them. Because that has been the experience in other communities as well. With that in mind, I would like to Mr. Spencer did ask a question about the 98%, and I would like to ask Mark Jewell to at least answer his question to the best of your ability.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for the question. The 98% figure comes from the solid line, the preferred alignment C, the 5.3 miles. It does not take into account those dashed alternatives I've mentioned. So if the assumptions that we're making in the planning phase but are borne out during the design phase, and the assumption we're making turns out to be correct, that it would be possible. For example, if it is possible to put the culvert under 72, that's an assumption we're making right now. If it is true and that solid line is feasible once design is underway, then the designers would be able to construct that solid proposed alignment at 5.3 miles long, 98+% off-road. Again, it comes down to how do you treat Broad Street? Is it going to be off-road? Is it going to be on-road? Those are choices that have to be made in the design. But does Broad Street, given its current existing conditions, permit an off-road facility physically? It's possible, yes. So if the choice was made to do it, you can get 98% off-road. There's decisions that have to be made in design. But if the assumptions we're making at this stage are correct, it's a snapshot in time, that solid line can be designed up to 98% off-road.
Okay, thank you.
I have nothing else to add for this evening, under any other comments or
Okay.
business.
Well, with that, thank you all for your kind attention. Happy holidays, healthy new year, and we'll see you next year.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.